We've been waiting 7 weeks. Is today finally the day Alabama going to get tested at Kyle Field? Or will the Tide go back to Tuscaloosa twiddling their thumbs waiting for LSU? 25 days from now, the playoff committee comes out with their first ranking. And don't be surprised if it looks way different than you expect. We're going to tell you who we think is going to be number one. As if last weekend wasn't bad enough for the Auburn Tigers, here comes an injury to their best player on offense. How big a deal is it that Boobie Whitlow is out, and can the Tigers stay in the playoff race?
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Pregame, presented by Pepsi.
You know, back in the day, Kyle Field used to give other teams jitters going into College Station, but since they've joined the SEC, not so much. The Aggies just 5-11 at home against ranked teams since 2012. And of course, who can forget 2012 when Texas A&M won their first SEC meeting against Alabama. But Johnny Football ain't going to be on that field today. They have lost 6 straight to the Crimson Tide since then, an average of 42-20. Welcome into the pregame show, Chris Brees and Mike Johnson, with you till 1:30 in the afternoon. And we're getting into Week 7 finally. We're going to see a landscape really kind of take place this week with 4 ranked matchups.
Yeah, I definitely think that when you look at the slate today, it finally, and I hate to say that because we're so far in, it finally feels like college football season's here. You start to see the ranked matchup. You're starting to get to the SEC play. Not that they haven't been there already, but it finally feels like Alabama's going up against somebody that can give them a run for their money. I'm excited to see the entire slate of games today.
And Field, things seem so different to us this week, just because you think about 2 months ago, the landscape felt like it was Alabama, it was Clemson, and then it was everybody else. It certainly, in the second week of October, does not feel that way anymore. Alabama doesn't seem invincible. Clemson certainly is not invincible. So with the Tide of the SEC game of the week, Texas A&M ranked number 24 in the country. But we get to a point with this Tide team where you want to see more, but again, you look at the average win probability remaining. This is kind of weird, Mike. Odds to win every game going out is actually less than to win the national championship.
Yeah, it's wild. Only Alabama, right? Only in the SEC West can you see odds like that. And I think that's the nature of the beast right now for Alabama. They don't feel like a team, at least in my eyes, that looks like they can run the slate and go 15-0. But there you have it right there. I mean, a lot of people think they're the number 1 team in the country. Their offense looks unstoppable. And you look at the rest of the slate, they got some tough matchups. So
what are you expecting to see from the Tide team today? Since they had a bye, Nick Saban addressed a lot of defensive issues. What do you want to see out of the team?
Well, I think they're going to be tested, first and foremost. I mean, I think when you look at Kellen Mond, this entire game starts and stops with Kellen Mond. He's going to be asked to do a ton. Now, he hasn't been incredible against Alabama in the last couple of years. He's been sacked 11 times. He has to stop that. But I think really the onus is on, first of all, the Alabama offensive line, particularly with the injuries up front that they've sustained. And then you look at the front 7 for Alabama and what happened a couple of weeks ago against Ole Miss with John Rice Plumlee. You cannot allow those things to happen. Shane Lee, some of these freshmen on defense really have to step up, or Texas A&M is going to have a lot of success. And I will say this, Texas A&M, when they play these top-ranked teams, they have propensity to make it look a lot closer than it probably actually is. So I think you're going to see a close score today. I don't know if the game will actually be that close, but I think this is going to be a tight one.
Nick Saban said that. Because of their schedule, Texas A&M plays better than you would assume on paper. And, of course, John Rice Plumlee, the quarterback, 31 points, 476 total yards against this Alabama defense a few weeks ago. Simone Eli with us now live on the field at Kyle Field in College Station. Saban loves to pick in that bye week. What's he picking at today?
Yeah, Brees, Nick Saban seemed pleased this week that Alabama players did in fact improve over the bye week. And a point of emphasis on the offensive side of the ball is that he wants to see a more balanced attack between the rush game and the passing game, and that starts with the offensive line. Now, it won't be easy, though, because the Aggies' rush defense allows just 108 yards, which ranks best for 33rd in the country.
I think A&M is played really, really well this year. They've got like 12 starters back. Jimbo does a really good job. They play really good on defense. They're one of the 5th or something in the SEC, give up less than 300 yards a game. Offensively, they've got really good receiving core, good running back.
Texas A&M is a great team. They have a great quarterback, great system, a great coach. They're just all around a good team. I feel like it's the best team that we've played so far, and it's a good match for them. I think we played in other loud stadiums. I feel like we've played in crazy atmospheres. But for me, it's fun. I think as a team, I think we think it's fun to kind of play in these type of games where it's going to be loud and it might be kind of tough. So we kind of get excited about these type of games.
This is going to be probably the toughest team we play, because they're our next opponent. I think they present a lot of things. They're multiple defense. They can play, multiple people anywhere they want. They like to pressure a lot, so, that's going to be something we need to handle with up front. But I think we have a pretty good game plan with what we want to do against them. But then again, our record doesn't mean anything. Their record doesn't mean anything. Anything can happen. This is college football, and we're playing in the SEC.
Great point there by Tide quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. This is the SEC. Anything could happen every single week. And what I'm hearing this week being called with all the ranked matchups is Separation Saturday. And I think that's a great point of emphasis for Alabama, an opportunity to prove that they belong at the top of the college football ranks, Brees.
Yeah, down on the plains of Auburn, the only separation going to be between the two offenses and defenses because they're on a bye right now. Going to get some much-needed rest. And look, fans, I know you're all sick of hearing this. Auburn still controls its destiny early in the year despite a loss. I know you want to talk about a team that's undefeated at this point, but they do control their destiny. But you look at the road ahead, it might be a little difficult. At LSU in a few weeks definitely looms. Only a 30% chance to win that game. Of course, you got Georgia and you got Alabama both at home. They'll be big underdogs in that, but Gus Malzahn's not giving up. He says this team has a lot to play for, and he has a lot to sell this week, too.
Looking at the second half, and, we can big picture it right now. We're looking at playing 3 of the top 5 teams in the country, one of those being on the road. So great opportunities for this team. Like I said, we're feeling tough today. Now, like I said, tough loss, but we'll wake up tomorrow, and we'll turn the page.
So if Auburn is realistically still going to have a chance, you think about 2017 when they had 2 losses, went into the Iron Bowl and won that game and had a chance to win the SEC and the playoff. Now the odds makers give Auburn a 5% chance to actually do that this year. Yeah. Is that realistic?
Well, I think the good and bad news is that you still have 3 top 5 teams to play. It's bad news because they are 3 top 5 teams, but it's good news because, hey, if you want your schedule to look there, if you want the College Football Playoff Committee to look at you as that team, hey, listen, we've got the resume if we're able to beat all those teams. But I think you look at Auburn right now, you look at what they are without Boobie Whitlow, you look at what Bo Nix has to do. They have the 104th ranked passing offense in the country right now. He's going to have to step up. And I think that's tough to ask a true freshman that, especially in some of the environments and some of the defenses they're going to be playing against. It's going to be tough sledding for them.
Well, the Whitlow injury could not have come at a worse time. He leads the SEC in carries. He leads them in touchdowns with 7. Is this the type of offense that we see that can evolve so quickly? Because LSU looms really soon here. Can Bo Nix be efficient enough to go on the road in Death Valley and actually make them compete?
I think you have to find a ground game at some point. And I don't know if that comes from Shivers or Harold Joyner or whoever else you have to stick in the backfield. At some point, you have to find a ground game. Now, maybe it looks a little bit different without Boobie Whitlow. Maybe it's more of an explosive ground game and not so much a ground and pound 5-10 yards here and there. But you have to find it at some point. You have to take that onus off of Bo Nix, or else they're going to be in a bad situation. Bo Nix has not shown the ability to go into those difficult environments just yet. I think Bo Nix has a heck of a future, but for right now, the way you saw him last week, you can't put that on his shoulders just yet.
And it hurts because the way they looked at Texas A&M, everybody was so excited. They clearly took a step back last week against Florida. And the quarterback they played in that A&M game, Kellen Mond, did not look very good against this Auburn defense. How will he look against the Crimson Tide? There's one thing that Alabama's really worried about. We're going to talk about that coming up next on the pregame show as the Tide faithful have made their way to College Station. They will go anywhere with this team, and Kyle Field, one of those venues that you love to go to, got to be a bucket list for a lot of these fans. We'll be right back.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Now, don't let Kellen Mond in this A&M 2-loss season fool you right here. He is posting career-high numbers so far this season. The offense can be dangerous. Will they be is the question. All career highs right here. Completion percentage, 64%. Yards per completion, 7.5. Quarterback rating, 140. We know the guy has the potential to be a monster. He did not look that way against Auburn. He didn't look that way against Clemson. But one thing that Mike wants to highlight right here that he could potentially really hurt Alabama with is something he did last year. A design quarterback draw. You saw Alabama miss a ton of tackles, but there was one vision A&M saw about why they ran that play.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's all about box numbers. How many times have we gotten in front of the screen this year and talked about box numbers when we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa and the RPO? Listen, this is basically a 5-man box. Here you have 5 offensive linemen, a quarterback and running back. The safeties back off. You're going to see wide receiver Jamon Osmond, who is leading the team this year in receiving yards. He's getting double teamed out here by the safety and Trevon Diggs or whoever's playing corner out there. I think it might be Shaheem Carter. They have numbers. So guess what? Kellen Mond, his legs, his speed, he's going to ask this running back to step up and make one block against Mack Wilson right there. He's able to do that. Little chop block right in the middle. You get a lineman up on a safety, Kellen Mond with his wheels. He's able to make explosive plays. This, to me, is very, very dangerous today when you look at this Texas A&M offense and Jimbo Fisher.
Okay, this could happen once. It can happen twice. But can it really happen 5, 6 times? Because you have to assume that if A&M is going to stay in this game, this has to happen a lot.
I think it's going to happen more than once or more than twice because I think Jimbo Fisher knows how to disguise these kind of looks. I mean, he's that good of an offensive coordinator. He won't give you that exact look. It won't be in shotgun with a running back in the sidecar right there. But he'll get out there, he'll run bunch formations, he'll motion guys in and out. He'll force Alabama's defense to make those changes up front. And then he'll come right back to the same play and put the onus on those freshman linebackers from Alabama.
And you got to think Jimbo Fisher knows this Alabama defense does have its flaws through the first half of the season. Nick Saban, of course, had the entire bye week to talk about those flaws and see how they could improve because you look at South Carolina, Ole Miss, they put up 930 total yards, albeit a lot of it in garbage time, yes. But Nick Saban had the bye week to prepare, and he's not worried about his defense anymore.
I think the bye week was good for us. I feel like we did a lot of things corrections-wise that we needed to do. I feel like it was a lot of stuff that we kind of sharpened up and got better with.
We made a lot of adjustments and going over things that Coach want out of us. He's real detail-oriented, so, it was a lot of adjustments that we had to make as far as our technique and, looking at the right things.
Now, everything clearly starts with that front seven. 4 freshmen have been playing in and out the entire season. Do you realize that Alabama is on pace to have their worst stats against running the football? 3.7 yards per carry. It's never been that bad, and it might get worse.
Yeah, I think it could get worse. And the problem for me really is when you look at Alabama's second level, particularly at linebacker. Now, yes, they are freshmen, but I think there's a lack of speed there. And I think Alabama fans have gotten so used to the Reuben Fosters of the world, Dylan Moses, Mack Wilson, having that speed at the second level. It's just not there. And I think you're going to see Texas A&M try to get Shane Lee, Christian Harris on the weak side of the field, get them in one-on-one situations, and try to expose the speed of these guys and make them fly to the sidelines. And I don't know if it's there. I really don't know if it's there. I think they're both very good players. I think they both played downhill very well. I don't know that they have the speed just yet in their Alabama career to really cover sideline to sideline.
Now, Texas A&M did average 426 yards in their wins, but those wins, Arkansas, Texas State, and Lamar. You saw them against Auburn and Clemson. Was it kind of a shocking revelation to you to see how, frankly, poorly that A&M looked against those two top teams?
I thought that they would be at a different point in time. And it does bring up a couple of different items. When we talk about Ole Miss and South Carolina and the success they had offensively against Alabama's defense, remember, they're both playing backup quarterbacks. I mean, they're both playing backup quarterbacks for those offenses. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. I think Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher at this point in time, they're still in that preparation stage for the run. I don't know if they're there just yet, but I really expected Texas A&M to be a lot farther down the line right now. They still have some work to do schematically on both sides of the ball.
And one saving grace for Alabama, turnover ratio. They're +8. That's top in the SEC. Texas A&M is dead last in the SEC at -2. That will not get it done for the Aggies if they want to pull the upset today at home. Okay, coming up here on a pregame show, top plays from Week 6, including one that Texas had to pull just to avoid the upset against West Virginia. We're back after this.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Okay, the only thing I really want to know about the top plays this week, does SMU special teams coordinator still have a job this week?
This is football 101. Jump on the ball. Don't wait for it to roll in the end zone. Come on, man.
Yes, Tulsa did score a touchdown on a kickoff, but SMU did win the game. They're 6-0 for the first time since 1982. And then Derek Brown, we were so confused what happened on this play last week.
You know I'm a lineman first and foremost, Brees. This is a nightmare. This is an absolute nightmare for an offensive lineman. Derek Brown, so good, so quick, so agile.
If that's a nightmare, this is a dream because Texas does the old bait and switch. This is legal. It's a lateral.
This is, Bama fans will remember this. This is the old Independence Bowl play to Andre Smith back in 2007 against Oklahoma State. They pull it off.
Why wasn't that you?
I wish it was. I ask myself the same question all the time.
Okay, week in and week out, we love the treasure that is Mike Leach at Washington State. He's talked weddings. He's talked dating. He's talked dating in Idaho. He's talked Pokemon. Most recently, mascot battles. But this week, Michael Leach on a whole new level, the difference between cat people and dog people.
I've never been able to understand animosity towards a cat any more than like a squirrel or a hamster or something, you know. You don't see somebody, I hate hamsters or I hate squirrels or I hate robins. Cat owners can become obsessive where at a higher rate than dog owners, where instead of, one cat's fun, two cats are twice as fun, so let's get 20 of them, you know. The other thing I will say this, when they crap in your yard, they smell a little different, cats from dogs. And it's very, 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 very difficult for me, once a dog is, say, below 10 pounds, to call it a dog. And to save myself from getting in a lot of trouble, suffice it to say, I would recommend that those people get a cat instead.
We might have a new record, 3 minutes and 5 seconds uninterrupted. And the best part about that, the next 7 minutes were talked about raccoons and why they might be better than cats and dogs.
Listen, I have to make a plea, please, to the SEC ADs. I don't know who's getting fired from a head coaching spot in the SEC. Don't let this guy hang out in Pullman, Washington anymore. Bring this guy to the Southeast. We all deserve this on a weekly basis, do we not?
I'm going Vanderbilt, I'm going Arkansas, and I'm going Kentucky, please.
Any of them.
Please.
South Carolina, any of them. Mizzou, I don't care where it's at. I mean, I don't necessarily want them in Alabama or Auburn, but any of them. Please bring this guy to the Southeastern Conference.
We don't want him back in the Big 12. And in the Big 12, the Red River Shootout rivalry, whatever we're calling it nowadays, Oklahoma and Texas. But Oklahoma, the last 3 times going into this, Mike, they've been undefeated and they lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Jalen Hurts, I'm so excited for this guy and what he brings to this rivalry. Obviously, he had the comment earlier in the week about playing in the Iron Bowl. He is such a good player, and I really want him to show out on this big stage.
Well, it is close right now. We're about to go into halftime. Oklahoma clinging to a 7-point lead. As for Jalen Hurts' stats, pretty quiet so far. 95 total yards, a touchdown. He's got an interception. He's got 105 yards on the ground, but still just 1 score for Oklahoma. You know that's going to be a game late. Here in the SEC, Georgia's won 15 straight games against SEC East teams. It has to end sometime. South Carolina is saying, why not today?
You knew that Will Muschamp, the Georgia grad, would have his guys come to play in this game. This seems like it's a game that's always like this, close between SEC East rivals. Ryan Helinski is such a good quarterback for a young kid.
2 former teammates, 2 great friends, and Muschamp and Kirby Smart, but they're not liking each other right now. That is because South Carolina has a lead on the road against Georgia. Yes, that is not a misprint. 17-10. We cannot wait to see what happens there on the post-game show coming up at 6 o'clock. How about last night? A couple of interesting games. How bad is the ACC Coastal?
So bad right now. Listen, it's been a talking point amongst a lot of college football pundits. Miami needed this win so bad, but whoever makes it to the game against Clemson and Charlotte, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath.
Well, that's not going to be a game. And Oregon against Colorado was not a game earlier. Oregon continues to look like they're the best team in the Pac-12. We might talk about that a little bit more coming up here on the pregame show as we wait for the Crimson Tide to arrive. The Walk of Champions at Kyle Field, a 2:30 kickoff here on CBS 42. We're going to talk all about Devontae Smith and that record performance he had last time out. We'll be right back.
watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Well, 12:29 by our clock. That means we should be seeing the Alabama Crimson Tide arriving any minute, 2 hours before the game at 2:30 kickoff on CBS 42 for the Walk of Champions. We'll get back to that as soon as that does happen. In the meantime, you got to be thinking these wide receivers are itching to get back out on the field. They haven't been out there in 2 weeks. We all saw what happened with Devontae Smith. Set so many records for Alabama with 5 touchdowns, 217 yards receiving 2 weeks ago. The guy does it all, and most of all that I love, Mike, he's not afraid of contact.
Well, and the reason he's not afraid of contact is he knows his quarterback is going to hit him in stride across the middle and not going to put him in bad situations. Tua does such a nice job of putting zip on the ball and hitting these guys right on the numbers. They don't have to worry about the safeties cleaning them up.
He knows Tua's going to throw the ball well, but he also knows that his guys are going to block in front of him, too.
Well, and he's going to have the opportunity, so you know that Jerry Jeudy, listen, won the Blitnikoff Award. You know, he's going to go out there, he's going to block for him, he's going to lay it downfield. And that's the beauty of this entire wide receiver core in Nick Saban's program. They're not afraid to lay it on the line.
And then the speed. I would say maybe the most underrated player on this team when it comes to the Jets.
Yeah, the double move right here. You never want to see that. That's an absolute nightmare. That's when you're begging your defensive line to please get home on the sack. If not, you're dead to rights, just like Ole Miss was last week.
These 3 receivers, all juniors, seem like they are just a massive triple threat. Devontae now has the most yards and touchdowns of all 3 after the other week. Henry Ruggs kind of fallen back a little bit off the back burner. But what about Jalen Waddle? As good as he was his freshman year last season, no touchdowns yet in 2019. So we've seen Devontae be the star. We've seen Henry be the star. We've seen Jerry. Isn't the natural progression now going to be that Jalen's next?
Well, I think it's nice that he hasn't had to be in that role. And the bottom line is this. I think Nick Saban has played his offense longer, or his top 3 guys longer, so you haven't had to see Jalen Waddle really get involved. But listen, a lot of people going into the season, even talking about John Mechie, the true freshman signee that's a Jalen Waddle clone, I think he's got 2 catches this year. I mean, maybe for 5 yards. So you're looking at a situation where really they're extremely deep. I mean, Terrell Shavers isn't even a name that's been on the field very much this year. He's another incredible wide receiver in this stable. So I think it's a good thing. I think Nick Saban on purpose has played this first-string offense deeper into the games. I think that's why you see Tua's passing numbers setting records, Devontae Smith setting records, and they're going to have to continue to score points because the defense isn't where they've been in years past.
And to think, the fact that Devontae Smith didn't make any preseason accolades, nothing in the SEC all-conference before the season. As a player, do you look at that stuff? Do you recognize it and say, that's my motivation, I'm better than people think I am?
Well, I think so, and especially in a wide receiver group. I mean, wide receivers are universally known for the chip on their shoulder, and they like to be talked about. And that's just the attitude you have to have. And the bottom line is the reason he's not mentioned on these lists is just guilt out of other coaches. You know, there can't be possibly 3 guys I have to mention from Alabama. Well, actually, there absolutely is, and possibly even 4. So you look at some of the scenarios and you look, you know, coaches or media members, whoever's voting on these things, it's like, no way I can just keep putting Alabama guys. Absolutely. When you look at this offense from Alabama, the passing offense, they're just dominant right now.
And by the way, those top 3 receivers on pace for 1,000 yards this year. Only 5 teams in the country have ever done that. Texas A&M really hoping they don't see that today against those best wide receivers in the country. Simone Eli is with us now in College Station with one term, Simone, that we're kind of confused about that I'm hoping you can kind of clear up for us.
Yeah, Brees, you know, throughout many college football programs in the SEC, they're full of rich traditions that mean a whole lot to the university. And right here at Texas A&M, they have a lot. Reveille, their mascot, the 12th man, just to name a few. Well, just like War Eagle and Roll Tide that we hear back there in Alabama, here in College Station, it's all about gig 'em. We asked students what exactly that means.
Gig 'em. Gig 'em is like when you it's like how you hunt a frog or something, like you gig the frog with like your thumb.
So gig 'em is a tradition that started back in the Southwest Conference days. We used to play TCU, the Horned Frogs, and before a game there was a guy that was trying to excite the team, and he held out his thumb like go get 'em, and he said gig 'em. Gig 'em was actually a term when you gig a frog, or you go frog hunting or fish hunting, you gig it with a spear, so he said gig 'em Aggies.
I don't support frog cruelty, but I feel like it's a catch and release thing, you know?
I have never actually gigged a frog, personally.
Everybody doesn't understand it, but when you're here, it just makes sense.
Gig 'em. Gig 'em.
Thanks, and gig 'em.
So I did a little research. Gig'em does stem from a term used from hunting frogs, of all things. And outside of Kyle Field, you see right now Alabama players getting off the bus. You know what that means? Kickoff right around the corner, guys.
Well, I certainly learned something new. I'm also learning that Mike Johnson's never been to Texas A&M. So that begs the question, Mike, I'm sure a lot of these players have never been to this specific atmosphere. Does it make you more nervous? Are you antsy? What is it?
I think it used to put me at ease. And some of the first places I played, when you go across the division, you go over, I played in Gainesville, I think in 2006. You go to 2008, I think we went to Florida to play over in Sanford Stadium. Georgia, to play in Sanford Stadium between the hedges. Aside from the crowd noise, I think it puts you at ease. You don't have to worry about a lot of the same things. You don't have to worry about people coming to town. It's just you, your teammates, you're on a bus, you're with your coaches, you're getting ready to play. You kind of focus in.
If anybody loves repetition and keeping an exact schedule, it's Nick Saban. Every single week he does this, straight off the bus, across the field, into the locker room, getting ready. Tua right behind him. We're going to take a break here on the pregame show. When we return, Art Franklin and Alyssa Rothermick will join us here on the set with an interview with one former Alabama player who's got his own bold predictions on this game. We'll be right back.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
So last week, if things were not bad enough for the Auburn Tigers losing at Florida, they have now lost their best player on offense, and it might be devastating. Drew Carter now here in studio to tell us why the loss of Boobie Whitlow is big and where they go from here.
Yeah, Chris, before the season, Jatarvius Boobie Whitlow said Auburn is RBU, and he's done his best to back up that statement himself. Whitlow second in the SEC with 544 rushing yards this season. He's also made the Tigers a heck of a lot of fun to follow thanks to this effervescent personality. But this is one of those rare weeks where he is not smiling. Out 4 to 6 weeks with a knee injury suffered late at Florida. Posted this on Instagram earlier this week. Everything happens for a reason, but they're all blessings. Minor setback for a major comeback.
I mean, obviously he's an impact player on offense. Like I said, the good thing is for that we do have a deep group at running back. All those guys got a chance to mix in with the ones and twos today, and really it's a good off week to get those other guys ready.
You know, it sucks. You know, Boobie is one of our guys. You know, we just got to step up.
I mean, obviously Cam Martin, we got a lot of confidence in him. He's played some big games and he has experience. There's nothing like experience.
I'm ready for the challenge. I did it before, but you know, I'm just ready to step up, man. You know, no pressure, no dominance. I'm just ready to step up.
We feel confident with the guys we got, and you know, we'll have a plan for Arkansas, and you know, we'll continue to do that until we get him back. But we do feel like he'll have a pretty good chance to get back before the end of the season.
The running back you heard there, Cam Martin, he's expected to be next in line. He's run for 174 yards and a couple scores this year. Also, make sure you keep an eye out for the sophomore, Sean Shivers, and then the freshman, DJ Williams. But either way, Chris, Auburn lost last week. This loss might be even worse.
They've had a chance to be a dark horse contender in the Heisman Trophy if he would have continued to get better throughout the year. These four, Week 7, seem like by far the four top names. Maybe throw in Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, the running back. We're calling it a four-wide quarterback quartet, and Mike is going to give you a reason why all four, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jalen Hurts, all have a legit chance to win the Heisman Trophy. This week, we start with Justin Fields, a guy who nobody even thought would be eligible in 2019. He came back from Georgia. His run-to-pass touchdown ratio better than anybody else in the country. No Big Ten player has ever scored a touchdown running and throwing every single week of a year. 18 passing touchdowns, 8 rushing touchdowns. Why could he win the Heisman Trophy?
Well, for me, I throw the stats out the window. The reason that he gets the looks from people is because he's everything right now that everybody thought he would be coming out of high school there in Georgia at Harrison High School. And that's not a knock on Georgia and the fact that he left Georgia and Jake Fromm or anything like that. Everybody expected this to be Justin Fields straight out of the gate. He is that. And I think that weighs on a lot of voters' minds when they look at these situations. They don't just look at statistics. They look at the pressure that's being put on these guys. And by the way, anytime you play quarterback at Ohio State, you're going to get a look from Heisman voters.
A guy like him always has one problem. It seems like if your team loses a game and you're a Heisman Trophy contender who's lower pack right now, you fall off. That's what I feel like Justin Fields could turn into. If Ohio State doesn't go undefeated, is he really going to be a Heisman Trophy contender?
I don't think he is. And I think, listen, we're going to talk about that with a couple of these guys when you talk about the Heisman thing, because the first and foremost, you look at the schedule. If you're a Heisman favorite early in the season, you almost never wind up winning the award at the end. So I think he has to run the table if he's going to get it.
You can maybe say the same thing about Joe Burrow at LSU. And how about this for the craziest stat you're ever going to hear? Do you realize that through 5 games, LSU has scored more points than any SEC team has ever done, Mike? That includes Tua last year, Tua this year. It's Joe Burrow who leads the league in almost every single stat. And here's the craziest part. From 2004 to 2018, LSU averaged 112th best passing team in the country. They're number 2 now.
Well, again, and I hate to keep going back to this, because all their stats are good. You're going to look down the list and say, oh, man, the stats are incredible. That's why they're on this list. To me, Joe Burrow of the 4, he's a Cinderella story. I mean, he's the guy that came down from Ohio State. By the way, transfer quarterbacks, possibly 3 in a row if you put all these guys on the list, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, and Jalen Hurts. But he's the guy that's a Cinderella story. I think it's feel good. And by the way, LSU, it's been a while since they've had a quarterback in the running for an award like this. I think he's going to get a ton of looks down the stretch. I will say this. He's got to beat Alabama. That's the only way he's going to win the Heisman Trophy is he's able to go out, pass the ball, and beat Alabama. That's when he's going to get the looks. That'll be his Heisman moment.
To me, he seems like the kind of player who started too low. Another classic example of you had to make up so much ground on Tua and Jalen. I'm not sure if he actually can do that with only 6 weeks left. Tua didn't have to make up any ground. We all know he's been fantastic. He leads the country in total touchdowns with 23. He is on pace to break he's on pace to break tons of team records in basically every single category. 12 yards per play. He's clearly better than he was last year. You don't have to say a whole lot about why he should win, but what is the case?
Well, I think that, first and foremost, he makes it look easy. I mean, we talk about it every week. We talk about the wide receivers. We talk about Tua. He makes it look so easy. Now, that could end up going against him, but I think if he continues, obviously, on the torrid pace he's on, he makes it look so easy, it's going to be hard not to vote for him. Now, I think, listen, you got down the stretch last year. He faltered a little bit. He got a little bit nicked up. I think his health is going to be a big concern for Heisman voters, but I don't have to make the case for Tua Tagovailoa. No, 25 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Those numbers make the case for themselves.
I still want to see what happens in November. Last year, you mentioned the injuries. Mississippi State, Auburn, Georgia did not look good. That was the reason why Kyler Murray won the Heisman Trophy last year. Tua has to prove it in November or else he's not going to win the Heisman Trophy. And the guy who could beat him out, yes, Oklahoma quarterback Jalen Hurts is on pace to break records set by Tua and by Kyler Murray last year. And get this, Jalen Hurts this season has better stats than Kyler Murray did last year and Baker Mayfield did the year before. He leads the country in passing efficiency. We're getting to the point where Jalen as the favorite's a realistic situation.
I didn't think there was any possibility that we'd be sitting here on the halfway through the year, and it just blows my mind. And listen, if you're an Alabama fan, you got to be rooting for Jalen at this point. And obviously, you want Tua to win the award, you want Bama to win the national title, but you have to feel good for Jalen. And I think Heisman voters take that. It's the feel-good story of the year. If he's able to run the gauntlet in the Big 12 and he's able to win all his football games, I think he's going to be there holding the trophy. And then if they're undefeated, I think it's going to be hard to make a case against him.
So I've been playing devil's advocate on the other 3. For Jalen Hurts, it seems like his stats have to be so good every week because of the defenses he's playing. Do you think they look at that and realize who he's playing?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, that's always going to be the case. But listen, what have we seen the last 2 years? We've seen Baker Mayfield. We've seen Kyler Murray. They both won. It didn't matter. And they both won, and it didn't matter. And even Kyler Murray last year takes a loss to Texas, which is being played right now. I think that, in my opinion, I don't think he can afford that loss that Kyler Murray did because I don't think that Tua is going to stumble down the stretch like he did last year. I think that Jalen has to be able to go undefeated if he's going to hold that trophy.
There's no doubt Oklahoma loved getting Kyler Murray as a transfer, and I'll tell you who would have loved to keep him was Texas A&M. He could have been a threat under Jimbo Fisher's team if he would have been eligible to play for him. You know, Jimbo has a massive contract, but wouldn't we say he's the most overpaid coach in the country, and was it a $75 million mistake? To give our thoughts next.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
So I know you could say Tua Tagovailoa has not faced a top defense this season. Will he get that today against Texas A&M and further boost up his Heisman Trophy contending stats? Simone Eli is there right by Tua on the field at Kyle Field in College Station. Texas A&M knows they have a lot to work on today, but Jimbo Fisher, if anybody knows Nick Saban, clearly he does.
Yeah, Brees, you're absolutely right. You know, the success of this Aggies team runs through their quarterback, Kellen Mond. He ranks third in the SEC in total offense. And you better believe that this young Tide front seven has heard nothing but his name all week. He's been pretty good for the Aggies so far, despite the 2 losses that they have. And again, no doubt in my mind, Nick Saban has said nothing but Kellen Mond's name to this defense after allowing Ole Miss true freshman signal caller John Rhys Plumlee to look like an all-star with 250 total yards and 3 scores last 2 weeks ago. Aggies head coach Jimbo Fisher knows Nick Saban well. They've been on the same staff and on opposite sidelines for many times. Jimbo will try to hit Bama where they're weaker, in this case young up front, and coach knows he has his hands full. He says this is a typical Alabama team regardless of consistent changes on the Tide coaching staff.
His system is his system, offensively, defensively, and you coach your coaches to coach how you want them to be in your system. And he does that. And of course, now new guys will bring new ideas and they'll spread, but you know, you're going to keep the basis of what you do and how you do it the same way. Those guys won't come in. They don't come in and just say, I'm running my offense. No, this is the Alabama offense. This is the Alabama defense.
So look for Alabama to try to force Mond into tough situations and turnovers. Last year, Mond put up 200 in the air, another 100 on the ground. So a guy that can be dangerous if he wants to be, Brees.
All right, Simone, thank you. And you know, this is just the stat that just keeps on giving. Nick Saban now up to a perfect 17-0 against former assistants, and those games really have not even been close. Average score in those 17 games, a whopping 42-14. Many of them are 0 for 3, 0 for 2, a couple of 0 for 1s. And Jimbo Fisher is one of those guys who you could say has the best chance to knock off Saban at some point, just because he is so new at Texas A&M. But you look at what this team has been through 2 years, a year and a half, Mike, we'll call it. Some people are really upset the fact that Jimbo has a 10-year guaranteed $75 million contract. Reaction or overreaction? Texas A&M made a mistake by making that contract what it was.
It's a complete overreaction, and there's a number of different reasons. First and foremost, I think when you look at Jimbo Fisher, you look at this Texas A&M program right now, in a much better place than they were 2 years ago. The way they've been able to recruit, the way they've brought speed in, SEC speed, they've been able to go into the state of Georgia, the state of Florida, the state of Louisiana, bring guys over to Texas A&M. I think another reason to me that it wasn't a mistake is you don't even have to have this conversation right now. It's tough when you have a huge buyout for a coach and he's not performing and you say, boy, can we afford that buyout? You're not even going to have that talk right now at Texas A&M. You don't look at it and say, can we afford the buyout? You're not going to buy him out. He's going to be there. He has a national championship under his belt. He knows the blueprint. He knows what it's supposed to look like, and he knows how to get it done. And he knows if his players are not there yet. So I think you feel comfortable right now if you're Texas A&M. You play in the toughest division in college football. Give him a few years. See if he can get his guys in there and really make a dent in this division.
When big programs are down, what do fans always want? We want a team that's going to pay to win. They're paying. Just because they're not winning a title in year 2 doesn't mean it's the wrong move. And that's probably something that people don't realize when you say a coach is overpaid. It's early, but you made the money, you did it, let him do his thing.
And listen, and I think his circumstances are different than, say, a Kirby Smart at Georgia or Nick Saban in Alabama. He's walking into an incredibly tough situation. I mean, when you look at Texas A&M, they were running a completely different style than he wants to run. Kevin Sumlin's offense is not Jimbo Fisher's offense. He has to teach Kellen Mond to take snaps under center and do a lot of different things. I think that he's going to be the guy in the end. He'll get it done in Texas A&M.
A&M in the West, a team to look out for in the future, that is for sure. Back here in Birmingham, UAB is going to be playing a game at UT San Antonio. Another road test because we know what happened 2 weeks on the road. They got to prove it. It's coming up next. And, of course, our playoff committee back in session this week. 1-6. Who do we have at 1 and why a surprise might be going up the rankings? We'll be back after this.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Well, a win last week for UAB was much needed after losing on the road to Western Kentucky. They're back in the thick of things in the Western Division. Only one game back of Louisiana Tech at the top, but today they got to go back on the road, and that might be their issue because the way they looked against Western Kentucky, 4 turnovers, they cannot do that again if they want to win the Conference USA title, and Bill Clark has a message for his boys.
You just look at individual performances, from a turnover standpoint, which has not really been characteristic of us. But I think just what does a road conference game look like, how important it is, et cetera. But we have been on the road already to Akron. So, you put all those things together and you just, as I always say, you got to be better on the road.
UAB is a 5 p.m. kick. That'll be on a wrap-up show, as will these games. Samford and VMI both tied 7-7 in the first quarter. Jacksonville State on the road as well. They have Eastern Illinois. They are up 14-7 in the second quarter. Okay, around the country, the playoff committee is getting really antsy because pretty soon here they are going to get to their first playoff rankings at the very first week of November. But here on College Football Saturday, we said, why not do it for a month early? Mike starts first with his number 6.
Yeah, listen, I think when you get past the top 2, you kind of go by the eye test. And I'm finally starting to buckle the eye test because a lot of the wins that came early in the season are starting to lose their luster. I got Oklahoma at 6. I think right now what Jalen Hurts is doing really passes the eye test. I feel the same way about 5. To me, these teams, they're just about the same. All right, they're playing at the same level. They have the same talent level. They're doing a lot of good things. How about Bama? I got them back in the top 4 after last time we did this. I did not have them in the top 4 because I think it's eye test. And I think Tua right now, when you look at all these quarterbacks, Tua is just so lethal with that wide receiver core. He's so hard to stop. I know I got Wisconsin way higher than you do, but I love the balance offensively that they bring, and they just have an incredible defense top to bottom. And then for my top 2, listen, you got LSU. They had the big win over Texas. I love what Joe Burrow's doing. We've already named it a number of times. The number 1 offense through 5 games in college football history, and the Georgia Bulldogs with that big win over Notre Dame. They're doing their best right now against South Carolina to make me look dumb, but I still think right now, as it stands, they're the number 1 team in the country.
Give them 25 minutes. I'm sure they'll right the ship there. You seem like the rational committee member. Is that safe to say?
I hope so.
That's what I'm striving for. You've gotten to the point where you are going on eye test. I can't get there yet for a couple of reasons. Number 6, I'm going to put Clemson just because they have not looked good. But again, how do you not put them in undefeated? That's why I'm keeping them up there. I don't like Wisconsin because I'm the committee member who unjustly likes to look ahead. I don't think Wisconsin's going to be a good team in a month, and I think we're going to see why. I want to get better on Ohio State. I think they're a great eye test. They just haven't beaten anybody yet. That's why I don't have them higher than I want to. Florida's interesting. I said this about Auburn last week. I'm not quite sure if they can be consistent. I'm worried about consistency. That's why they're not higher, but they beat Auburn. That's why they're in right now. Alabama, I put in just because they're undefeated. They're like Clemson, but they've looked much better. So I was okay putting them in the top 4. And then I just flipped 1 and 2 just because I thought LSU's victory again over Texas, I'm sorry, it was a long time ago. You are right. We're getting to who you think the best team is in the eye test right now. Georgia 2, hopefully the South Carolina game will make me right in this. We'll see. But with LSU at number 1. But again, we both last week did not put Oklahoma in. You're starting to rise them up. You've got Wisconsin high, but again, this is all going to play itself out. I really want to look at November because I'm not ready to make any decision until then.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, and that's why the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't make any decisions until then. That's why they don't do it right now, but I really do. These 6 to me, and Wisconsin, we're going to find out. We're going to find out sooner or later what they are. They just look like a dangerous team to me. I love Ohio State's defense. Oklahoma's defense, much improved as well. When you look at what they were last year, I think defensively they look much more like a playoff team than they did a year ago defensively. And so that's where it lies for me right now. You can't, in my eyes, right now leave Alabama out because all these things are starting to kind of fall into place, and they just look so dominant offensively.
My friend, when we're done with this show, we're going to go watch a game Wisconsin's going to play today against Michigan State. I am almost going to guarantee you that that is going to be a barn burner down to the final possession. And I don't know, maybe it'll make Mike change the way he looks about Wisconsin. That's my hope. That's my prediction. As for other predictions across the country, we're going to get to all of those coming up, including that massive game in Baton Rouge, Florida, and LSU as we roll on here on the pregame show. And, of course, back at Alabama with Texas A&M. We know Henry Ruggs is really healthy, but what about the rest of that offense? Is the Tide going to have their top offensive lineman, their center in, or will somebody else have to fill that void? We'll be right back.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
AP top rankings, top 10, I should say, through 7 weeks. Of course, Bama hung on to number 1. They jumped to that spot a few weeks ago. You saw Penn State creep up to number 10 in that ranking. They got a game with Iowa. Wisconsin's there at number 8. They have a game against Michigan State. And Mike made me aware during the break that my picks for the playoff make me look like a massive homer in the SEC because my top 4 were all SEC. I'm not, I promise. But games tonight, again, are going to shape this landscape. Mike is really big into Wisconsin. You love Jonathan Taylor. You love the fact that they can run the football. But Michigan State has 6 wins against top 10 unbeaten teams since 2011. It's the type of game that Mark D'Antoni loves to play.
I completely agree with you. Mark D'Antoni has been so good in these games right now. But when you do look at Jonathan Taylor, and it's not just him, it's the Wisconsin defense to me that is so well balanced. They're good in all facets. This to me is Wisconsin putting their stamp and saying, you know what, we belong in this conversation. I love Wisconsin in this game. I think they roll big.
10.5 points is way too much for me. Wisconsin's been very good first half-wise, only 3 points given up all year. This is going to go down to the wire, but I think Wisconsin wins it on the final possession. But it's going to be close, and you Wisconsin fans will be sweating it out, that is for sure. Notre Dame and USC. Of course, USC, we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Matt Fink? Is Keaton Slovis back from concussion? We don't know yet. We will see. How about this? Notre Dame looking for its first 3-game win streak over USC since 2000. Now, we know USC's injuries on the road is going to be their big issue.
No, I don't think there's any doubt. And you look at USC and the ups and downs they've had at the quarterback position, obviously. This one's about Notre Dame for me. And I'm going to go ahead and make this statement. Notre Dame, for me, will not be in the playoffs at the end of the year, but they'll be at number 5 in that college football playoff ranking at the end of the year. I think they're that good. I think that Georgia's very good. I think they went toe-to-toe with them. Notre Dame, one of the best teams in the country, just not quite top 4 for me.
It seems like the only potential good win they could have left would be Michigan in a few weeks. For me, they always say that home field advantage is 3.5 points, 3 points. I think it's about 10 or 12 for Notre Dame today just because of the inexperience.
Agreed.
For USC. I'm going to go Notre Dame as well. Penn State and Iowa in the Big Ten. We saw Iowa look awful at Michigan last week. 3 total points. Nate Stanley was sacked 8 times. So in comes Penn State. They've been rising up the rankings, a top 10 team now. But here's the deal. You may not realize. Did you know James Franklin is 0-6 on the road against ranked teams, and Iowa's stout defense is going to give them major problems today.
It's an Iowa stout defense, and you talk about Kirk Ferentz, you talk about, by the way, night game, love a night game in this setting right now. I think Penn State's walking into a very, very bad situation. Not only that, Ricky Stanzi, the Nittany Lion tamer, is going to be in the house for Iowa. He's the honorary captain for Iowa. Love Iowa to roll in this game. I know Penn State's a very good football team, but that's just that environment to me will be too much for them today.
You said it all. The fact that it's at night is big for me. Iowa's defense, top 5 in the country, 250 yards per game. Penn State's offense may have been good. They have not come close to seeing anything like this. Another close, low-scoring game. I like Iowa at the very end. We could see that down in the bayou of LSU and Florida, 2 top 10 teams. But you got to realize that the last 5 have all been very close. Forget about that 13-point spread for LSU. Each of the last 5 have been one-score games. LSU, how about this? 54 points per game. Did you know that Florida's given up 57 total? Something's got to give.
Yeah, something's definitely got to give. It's my upset special.
Oh.
You got to love the Florida Gators. I love what their offensive line is doing. Head coaching matchup for me, bar none, goes to Dan Mullen. Ed Orgeron, you are who I thought you were right now. To me, Dan Mullen, the Florida Gators, the huge line down in Baton Rouge College game day. Florida rises to the occasion tonight.
You truly are a what have you done for me lately committee member. You know why? You had them number 2. Where were they?
With the schedule they've already played. Now, when you go to fast forward to next week, we'll talk about this loss.
Would you even put them at number 7?
I think you have to have them in the top 10. I don't know if it's 7 right now, but I'm just telling you right now, with the matchups that you'll see tonight, Kyle Trask, just get the ball out of your hands. You'll do your thing.
2 games to look out for in the postgame show. Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Florida, LSU. Bragging rights on the line coming up at 6 o'clock. And if you want bragging rights yourself, just go to CBS42.com. It's the College Football Challenge. There's our top 5 leaderboard across everybody playing on our website. You can win a lot of cool prizes, so make sure you get on top of that. Again, CBS42.com to get in our College Football Challenge. Over in Kyle's College Station at Kyle Field, kickoff again 2:30 here on CBS 42. One more look at that forecast with Sarah Canty.
The colder air that's being felt here is also being felt in College Station. It's going to be a beautiful afternoon for football. Temperatures are only going to be in the 60s, warming up to the low 70s around halftime, but still finally feeling like fall. Plenty of sunshine, a little breezy at times, so a little cool for the Alabama game today, but absolutely perfect weather. Could not ask for a better, finally, fall football forecast.
Could not ask for a better Alabama offense right now, but we know, Simone, that they're dealing with some injuries. Give us that latest update with that Tide team, especially up front on that offensive line.
Yeah, guys, the biggest concern when it comes to injuries for Alabama, like you said, Brees, is on that offensive line. Center Chris Owens expected to not play today against Texas A&M. Landon Dickerson will slide over from guard to take over center for the Tide offensive line today. Deontay Brown likely to replace Dickerson at right guard, and regardless, like Nick Saban harped on going into the bye week, he wants to see a more balanced attack that begins with this offensive line, finishing their blocks and helping that run game get going here on the road in a very, very tough stadium. It's already beginning to fill up right now. It's an overcast sky. The music is getting louder, so you know kickoff is just right around the corner. Number 24, Texas A&M. Number 1, Alabama, the first ranked opponent for the Tide, coming at you pretty soon. We'll be right back.
Watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday pregame, presented by Pepsi.
105-plus strong, 1,000 fans at Kyle Field today. Alabama knows it's going to be loud. Tua Tagovailoa knows he's got to be on point. And look, Alabama fans, I know you love having your team win all these blowout games, but there's going to get to a point where Alabama needs to have a game against a good team that's close so they know how to win under pressure, because LSU looms November 9th. That'll be a benchmark game for this Crimson Tide team. And against Texas A&M, again, 6 straight in this series ever since Johnny Manziel shocked them back in 2012. So today on CBS, the 12th man has to do its job for A&M to be that extra man on the field and disrupt Tua Tagovailoa.
Well, I think if they'd win games that they're supposed to win at Kyle Field, it'd be more intimidating. I mean, they had the opportunity a few weeks ago, and it didn't work out so well for them. But it's intimidating, I think, from the standpoint of when you feel the stadium moving. We can feel it up in the booth. And when you got 5,000 people or whatever, and they start doing the whole thing back and forth with the 12th man, and when you actually feel the stadium moving and you think it's an earthquake.
The CBS crew, Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, and Jamie Erdahl will be on the call. Time for Keys to the Game, Mike. It all starts with Alabama's quick start.
You know you're going into a raucous environment. I mean, everybody's talked about Kyle Field over in College Station there in Texas. Score first. Get the fans sitting on their hands. Make those fans say, oh, my goodness, here we go again. I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys for Alabama today.
Mike Elko, the offensive coordinator for Texas A&M, maybe going to try to draw some things up. What does that mean?
Well, I think, first of all, you talk about it on both sides of the ball. Lockdown coverage is key to the game. I think particularly Alabama's defense, have the lockdown coverage. Make sure that your DBs can go out and play so that those linebackers don't have as much pressure.
Texas A&M is very slow. They're 104th in the country in plays per second.
Yeah, I think they're going to try to do that. They're going to try to keep away from Tua Tagovailoa. Keep your defense off the field. Run the football if you're Alabama.
CBS Game of the Week in the SEC on Channel 42 at 2:30. And, of course, Mike and I are back on the post-game show at 6 o'clock. We'll see you then.